Hi, my name is Jason, and I'm a fiction writer. And this is the first video in what's hopefully going to be a series of videos as an experiment for myself to help me hone my craft a little bit, stretch myself, because we all know that getting in those uncomfortable places creatively is where all the good stuff happens, it's where we learn stuff. So the first one is going to be called Worth a Thousand Words. And obviously, it's based on the old adage, a picture is worth a thousand words. So, what I'm going to do is get a piece of artwork and attempt to create a thousand word short story out of it. I haven't done it yet. This is not shot after I did it, so it could be a complete disaster. I might put a video at the end just to kind of gather my final thoughts and see what I learned about it. Most of it's going to be a screen recording of me typing with the artwork on screen. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it. Follow along, get your own artwork. Here we go. All right, the artwork I chose is entitled Misty Ruins by a concept artist illustrator named Andis Reinbergs out of Riga, Latvia. Found him on ArtStation, which is a great resource. He was one of the first ones that caught my eye on the collage on the main page. Go check it out. I'll make sure to put all this information down in the description. So let's take a look at the image really quick. I was definitely looking for things. There's a lot of portraiture with concept art and all over ArtStation. I was trying to stay away from that because that I felt would be a little bit too limiting. Clearly, this has a story to tell. You got this nice background tower-like ruin that's glowing with torchlight. You have this guy who's ascended these steps for who knows how long. Why is he going here? And what the heck is this thing on the upper left? Is that a statue? Is it some kind of being? I don't know, but it has a really cool vibe. Reminds me a lot of Justin Sweet's work, who's one of my favorite concept artists. But anyway, thanks, Andis. Awesome artwork. Appreciate the inspiration. Let's move on to the writing. So I'm going to speed this up 4 times. Pause it when I think it's necessary. And, you know, for whatever reason, yeah, here, the birds, they caught my eye, even though they're off to the side into the background. Yeah, I don't know. I just started there. It just seemed like a cool way to start it, circling the tower. And then we move on to his pose. It's kind of an interesting pose. It's almost like he's ready for battle or holding it like a torch almost. So I think that's why this was the part where you'll see in a second here where I came up with this guy named Hemster, who's apparently this artist that lives in a village. You know, I was a art minor in college, and I remember, you know, learning how to measure proportions by holding the pencil out. And for whatever reason, that popped into my head, and that's what I used. Here we go on to this character reminiscing about his village life and about this artist. And, you know, I kind of viewed it as way, you know how when we're thinking, probably how I'm diverging on a lot of different topics here, going off different tangents. But you know, something, we'll see something and that'll take us back. And clearly right here, these thoughts, these light thoughts, burned away the mist, the fog that shut him now. So I was trying to use that as kind of like, you know, how long has this guy been on this journey? Has it been weeks, months, days? What is it like? He's, you know, where is he from? What's it like there? So anyway, I don't know. This just popped into my head as an idea of like, let's take the subject out of this creepy, misty, dark, ominous place, and kind of just get inside of his head. I mean, I'm a huge fan of character work and getting inside the brain of the protagonist or whoever it may be. And so move on here, moving down to his, you know, the thoughts relating to the way he's holding the sword, and then how he inevitably was pulled away from it. I notice he's holding the shield kind of low in his arm, and so I kind of use that to bring him back to reality. I think that's a very common, easy way to bring someone from kind of a reverie back to reality is have them anchored by some physical object. Then I get into the italics here are this dialogue, this voice that comes to him. Who they are, I have no idea at this point. I just kind of looked at this guy as kind of a guardian, and he's like he's watching this spot, and he's so large it seems, you know, what are these flags? Seems important. Yeah, I kind of make it seem like he's somewhat hallucinating. Is it coming from his own mind? Is it another voice coming from somewhere, which we'll get into. It's actually kind of really hard to talk and read at the same time. I see all these videos where people are doing artwork and talking, and I think that's got to be easier, right? Because you're not trying to read at the same time. Anyway, tangents, I know. So I continue the dialogue here. Let's see. Yeah, was convinced the voice was his own. Kind of going mad. He's kind of weathered, beaten down. been on the road a long time. He's kind of questioning his own. Can he hear? Can he see? Yes. Okay. And then this voice is commenting on his him looking at that glowing doorway. And then now he spots it. Well, he determines that it is not his own voice. It's coming from a direction. And here I am going backward, which I should not be doing. I should be always going forward. But sometimes it's hard to resist, especially this is the first time I've done it, so I wasn't quite sure how things would work out. Yeah, then here he decides that okay, I can trust my eyes. I can trust that sense at least. And then here he notices this figure. Is it something? Is it someone? He knew that this thing was maybe it wasn't audible. He was hearing it inside of his head. And then here he decides to face this thing. I noticed I kind of pictured him. He's in this interesting pose, right? It's not like an action pose. It's he doesn't seem tired. He seems ready for something, but not quite sure what. I almost pictured him frozen in this pose here, which is funny because it's like it's not dynamic anyway. So then here we can see he's kind of affected. He's affected by this. He's finally decides to turn his head. Yeah, he's just taking it all in at this point, and he's kind of almost unsure if this thing's alive or not. And then the voice comes again, and he's commenting, on the knowledge of him approaching for so long ago, or for so long. Oh, and then there's a woman I introduced, and I'm kind of describing here, maybe that this thing knows that this person lives in a valley. There's mountains around it. There's protective. And then here we have our hero. He is denying it. He's talking to himself. Just keep your eye on the prize. Keep moving on. Don't give in. I believe I italicized these out. And I think the most important thing right now is just keep going forward. I think seeing that timer in the bottom right really helped me, knowing that I do not want to work on this for 3 hours. And you shouldn't. I mean, I think the whole point of this is to keep going. It's just an exercise, right? This is not something you have to publish. This is not something, well, I'm sharing it to everybody who decides to click on this video. But, just it's for yourself, right? This is just kind of like, it's like exercising your muscles, right? Okay, so then we get back to the voice, and all of a sudden he's somewhat he's asking for forgiveness. Like he's almost not part of this thing, which is kind of an interesting turn. I don't know where that came from. It just popped up in my head. And then all of a sudden we find our protagonist frozen. His boots were staked to the step at his feet. And then now he noticed like a little bit of moss. And I noticed in the artwork, I don't know if you can see, it looks like it's not quite stone. Maybe there's some kind of moss there, some kind of lichen. And I just use that as a means to, I don't know, almost feel like the ground was, yeah, see, roots would rise from it, roots like the ones that weaved through the thing that would not shut up. So almost as if, like, while he was standing there, the ground itself started to open up and claim him. So, and then that leads to his feet, obviously. We're talking about his feet planted. So he just needs to kind of move on. And then he's challenged to try it. Try to move. Can't do it. Nope. At this point, I wasn't sure if I was doing a physical transformation or anything, or if it was just figurative, like in his head, like he's frozen and questioning why he's doing this at all. Yeah, I just kind of equate that to the doorway in the distance, the warmth he needs, and then here comes this voice. It's almost like his unconscious telling him, this is over. You can't move on, but he still fights it. Right, he needs to cross the dais. Sorry for the misspellings. I'm going quick. There's been a few. And then here we go. He came here. I decided to seek some help. Right, he lost somebody, clearly a woman, as I mentioned, and he's coming to this place to seek help. And here he's battling his thoughts again. He's He's confirming like, no, she exists, they exist, and that's all that matters. That means that that's the life. That's all the life he needs at this time to hold on to them. And then this is a weird spot too, is that I kind of commit to the him being rooted to the ground and turning to stone even. I don't even know if I'm thinking that at this point, but and then presumably there's been an array of these people, right? Statues maybe that this guy has passed on his way up ascending this massive staircase, however long. This character, I don't want to say he mocks him, but he kind of does. You know, he's kind of like, do you think you thought them ornamental? You thought they were placed with hand with purpose. And now we find out he can't turn his head. So he's frozen in place. I think that's about when I decide that whatever is making him not, turn to a statue, I guess, is happening now. And he got far. He can't, you can see he can just he can look down at his face, but that's it. Can't turn his head. And then here I thought it was interesting because like he's almost accepting his fate, right? So the ground felt good though, and he cursed himself for enjoying the pleasure, meaning he's almost becoming at peace with his fate at this point, which I don't know. I mean, he's at odds with it. Obviously, he's pissed off that he's taking pleasure in this at all in any amount. His sense of touch goes away. He can just kind of perceive mass. And once again, he's he it was the portal. It was real. It was close. It was his for the taking. And then I think that leads to this golden sun. It's kind of, I don't know, I've kind of subconsciously, I don't even think I was looking at the word count down below. You can see I'm at 920 words right now. But it felt like, okay, he's frozen. What else am I going to do? I can't keep this dialogue going on forever. And I use this as a, for him to get to this light in the distance, to have the imagery that's going to help him, conjure this memory that's going to tell the reader exactly what happened, more or less, not every detail. But you can see here that we're following this ray of sunlight across his house, into a room where a dead woman lays on a bed. And we're getting very close. 990 words, nested. Should be nestled, maybe. And then the final line, is sort of the nail in the coffin. But then he wishes him well, sleep well. And here I'm going back and just kind of cleaning up some words, cleaning up some sentences, changing words, fixing spelling mistakes, trying to go as quickly as possible. I know I'm over 1,000 at this point, so I'm kind of thinking that. I know it feels like 1,000 words is pretty arbitrary, but I don't know. It's kind of a cool. You got to know when to stop, right? Otherwise, I could turn this into a novel probably if I really wanted to. This would just be like the climax of the whole thing. And so I don't know. I thought it'd be fun to just have like this arbitrary word count. See if I could do it. I've tried it before with much smaller word counts, like 100 words, 200 words. But 1,000. I know when I first started this, I was like, man, 1,000 words is a lot of words. It's like, around 3 or 4 manuscript pages. But I think once I started, it just kind of kept going, and your subconscious really takes over. I think that's the toughest thing to do is start. Like once you start, get those first few words out, turn into sentences and paragraphs. And before I knew it, I mean, I hit 1,000 words well before an hour. I at first thought I was going to take me an hour just to get these words out, but thankfully it didn't on my first try as well. Lucky me. I'm just continuing to edit here and there with his gaze. The old criticism from a lot of editors. You don't move your eyes don't go anywhere, your gaze does. So that's what that was. Then he called him boy once, and I decided I liked the young one better. I'm italicizing here internal thoughts. Hopefully that's somewhat distinguishable from the previous line from the entity or the statue. cleaning up stuff still. Looking pretty happy. I'm at 1,003 words. Oh, 1,000 equal now. Okay, then I go up a little bit, down a little bit. That's bound to happen, obviously. And it's about to end. I mean, I'm at almost 51, I believe it ended. So just a couple more minutes. And I think here I'm at 1,000, just looking it over. Hey, am I cool with this? I'm like, is it over? Is it over? I did it? Did I really do this? And I did. So I'm just kind of like, going through the sentence, the last part, because I think that's a pretty important piece right there. And once again, none of this is like proofread, really. I mean, I'm just going over it quickly, second, maybe a third time, trying to, kill some repetition to get it as clean as possible, really. But realistically, I would probably clean this up a hell of a lot more if I were going to publish it in any shape or form. I did it. I can't believe I did it. So I don't know. I mean, I think this is great for anybody to try. Especially you don't have any, there's really no stakes, right? I mean, if you're working on a story or a manuscript, you you might not know where that's going. It's like, well, just take this, find some cool artwork, write a story about it, and throw it away. Whatever, man. No one has to see it. Just do it. I think it's helped me out a lot. I've been really struggling with procrastination a lot lately, and I think a lot of you guys know what that's like. I think any creative type does to a degree, and really, it's just important to keep going. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I may or may not do a little outro video that will be very redundant to what I'm saying right now. So thanks again, Andis, for the cool artwork, and see you next time. The birds, they swarmed the tower like flies on a corpse. Dark thoughts, but those were the only kind he could muster for the last few leagues. He held his sword to eye level as if it could measure the distance he had yet to travel, the height of the door beyond the broken path. A quarter blade, that's how tall it was. Back in the village, old Hemster would use a brush to measure the proportions of his subjects while painting. The only artist in the village, Hemster was a bit of a celebrity. Men watched with curious eyes from the fields they worked in. Women desired to be his subjects. These thoughts, these light thoughts, burned away the mist. He held on to them tightly, tighter than his sword, which two fists grasped. But his mind didn't last, nor his hands. His shield dragged him back to reality by the crook of his arm. They will not see you. A voice in his head, not his own. It crawled from the stones 1,000 upon 1,000 steps that drifted behind for as far as he could remember. That feeling of stone had become all he knew. The loam of the Black Hills and the lowlands before them were not a feeling he'd recall. Though recall he tried, twisting the heel of his boot on the smooth step, then toe. Not the scrape of sand, not a whisper. They do not have what you seek. He was convinced the voice was his own. What did he know of sounds any longer? He could feel, yes. He could see. But here? Nothing but the constant breath of nothingness. Your eyes will not bring them to you. Your eyes will not bring you to them. The voice had a direction now, and that direction was to his left, atop a rise of steps marked by the tatters of banners with no meaning. His eyes he could trust. Between the banners, as still as the dead trees, sat something. Someone. It didn't matter which at this point. Whatever it was the source, a well with a conduit into his mind. He twisted the sword in his grip, angled his shoulders before finally turning his head instead of peeking from the corners where his helm obstructed most of the horror. There you are. A genderless voice. With his gaze upon it, it felt more real. He swore he could see the thing shift in its nest of stone and root. Many steps you have come. I have felt every footfall, every breath. But this road is not meant for the likes of you. Though you set out with hopes as high as the dreams you shared with her, as high as the mountains that protected you in their warm embrace, as warm as the stones can be. And young one, I know of stone. Ignore it. Turn your head. Not far to go. maybe 100 yards, maybe less. These were messages from an island floating in the deepest of waters. Ink, mud, mud hiding the bones of the dead. Forgive me, I should have warned you sooner. I mean you no harm. I am not here to be a burden. I am not here to hinder your journey. Just know that it is over. His boots were staked to the step at his feet. He glanced down to see the step split with moss, a cushion he didn't notice before. It hadn't been there. He was sure of it. Roots would rise from it, roots like the ones that weave through the thing that would not shut up. A step. It was all I needed to prove it wrong. Try. He did. Nothing. His legs weren't his own any longer. Could he feel them? He felt his hands, the shield hanging on his arm, the wrap of the hilt, the weight of the crossguard, the effort of keeping the sword upright, as strong and tall as the doorway burning like a hearth he so desperately needed. Do not fear what you already know. Do not fear what you know already. He knew he was going to move forward, cross the threshold of this creature, walk proudly across the distance to where he would find them, the ones who could help him, who could bring back what he had lost. No, not lost. She existed in his mind, and that was all that mattered. They were as real as anything, her touch, her sight, her voice. Seen the others, had you not? The steps are littered with them. You thought them ornamental. You thought them placed with hands, with purpose? He would have turned his head if he was able, but it was now as immovable as his legs. Lowering his gaze did nothing but provide the blurred edge of his cheek split by his nose, a tuft of mustache. The ground felt good, though, and he cursed himself for enjoying the pleasure. It was the last thing he could feel. The sense of mass was all else he could perceive. But he reached out for the warmth of the distant portal. It was real. It was close. It was his for the taking. Golden sun, breaching the curtains, disturbing them with a gentle touch before the breeze followed, crawling across the floor, over flattened nails that held floorboards together, smooth with wear. Across the table where meals were had if they were lucky, through a small crack in a door that was thought to be closed, should have been closed. Up rumpled sheets tucked around hay, to a hand, so pale, fragile. Pink nails biting into palm where the crust of dried blood marked a painful struggle. To a bosom that lay motionless, scaled with the salt of dried sweat. To a face nested in hair as golden as the light that sought it. No, young one, like you, all of them. Your journey took you farther, but it ended all the same. Sleep well. Well, I'm happy to say I finished it. As you can see, I believe I was around, 51 minutes, so just under an hour, which is awesome. I was kind of shooting for an hour. That seems like a reasonable amount of time where I'm not working on this stuff all day long because obviously I have the real stuff I want to write, the books I'm working on. Yeah, it was a cool experience. I think I'm gonna do it again. I'm not sure how often. Maybe once a week, maybe more. I don't know. We'll see what the response is like. It's funny because when you start, you don't even really know where you're going. I didn't plan anything. Yes, I did pick the image a day or so ago, so I'm sure some of that imagery was floating around in my head a little bit, but it definitely kind of ended up not at all where I thought it was going. What I always envision is whatever that image is going to be either the beginning of the story, some kind of midpoint, or the end of it. I think in this one, it kind of was the end. I liked where he was, the subject of the piece, in that pose. It almost, I don't know. I just saw the tip of his sword sticking up there, and it made me think of I don't know, like in art class when you're measuring a subject with the pencil. So I threw that in there. That's just, and I kind of went with the flow with it. Clearly, he was seeking something. He was going somewhere, and then I noticed that cool guardian, like being or statue. I don't even know what it was. Wanted to incorporate a dialogue. Now, is the story perfect? Of course not. There's probably all kinds of ways to make it better. But the important thing is that I finished it and I felt like I got something out of it. And that's really what matters. So if you want to see more of this, comment below, subscribe, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. Do you want to see it out in real time? I know I sped it up just for the sake of brevity. Live stream this stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye. If you'd like to read this story in its non-video format, check the link in the description. I didn't add anything else, promise. Thanks again.